Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you to Pari, as always, who's going to present the class today. Just a very quick summary of the previous chapter, because we have Arav, who's joining for the first time, and I just wanted to give him a very brief idea. First chapter, Arjun says to Krishna, please take my chariot in the middle of the battlefield. I want to see who's fighting on whose side. Krishna takes in the middle, and he becomes a little disorientated. He's saying then to Krishna, why do we have to fight? I really don't want to fight. My grandfather is across there on the other side. My guru is there. My cousins are there. My uncles are there. So he says, and he gives some reasons as to why not to fight. And then the second chapter, he basically surrenders to Krishna and saying, look, I don't really know what to do now. Please help me. Please guide me. And Krishna guides him by giving him 3 sets of instructions. One is about who we really are, and that is a spirit soul. What is our duty in life? That's number 2. Number 3 is how does a pure devotee behave, or a saintly person behave. And then third chapter, he talks about karma yoga, which is where we do our duty without worrying about the fruits of our labor. For example, you're studying. So you do your best studying, and then what results you get is up to the Lord. You depend on the Lord. And then the 4th chapter is Gyan Yoga. Krishna describes about how one can get to know him through knowledge, through scriptures. And then the 5th chapter talks about, again, karma yoga, but a little bit more about how we connect with God. So karma yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. And today we're going to talk about the 6th chapter, which is all about Dhyan Yoga. Over to you, Pari.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful introduction. So, like Prabhuji gave such a good sort of summary of all these chapters, we're going to start with the 6th chapter today. And it's a really important chapter because we learn about Dhyana Yoga. And it's also a very misunderstood chapter in a way. So, as we sort of speak more about it, on and on, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So the summary of chapter 6, just before we start reading all the texts and whatnot, is that at the end of chapter 5, Krishna, he briefly sort of explains and mentions the system of Ashtanga Yoga, which is, that focus and that regulation that a yogi must have. So he mentions, how they behave and what qualities they have and what they do. Now, in the present day, when we talk about, today in Kali Yuga, so many people, like all around the world, they practice so many elements of this path. So they actually practice, when we see yoga, so we see pranayam, that's what it is, pranayam, which is, like yoga, which we do, or meditation, or hatha yoga. And of course, they have their own benefits physically, but we also need to understand the spiritual aspects of it and how it can help spiritually. But also, we need to sort of assess whether this is the best way of going back to Krishna. Because, of course, we have so many types of yoga. We have karma yoga, nishkama karma yoga, we have bhakti yoga. And this is similarly another type. So we have to sort of assess whether this is the best way and the easiest way for us to go back to Krishna. But in this chapter of Ashtanga Yoga, we see sort of themes that are, we talk about the state of mind. That's a major theme. We see the detailed practice and how it is sort of impractical in this age. We talk about how Arjuna questions this practice as well. And this makes you think that if Arjun is finding it hard, think about how hard we might find it. But of course, this is a very informative chapter. And in terms of, should we do this? Should we try it? What happens to the spiritualist who can't achieve the end result? Is he lost in both spheres? That's a really interesting thing. And the yogi performing bhakti yoga is the best. So like I said, when we assess the yogas, we really think about whether dhyana yoga is practical for us. And if it's not, we should most probably stick to bhakti yoga. So, why is this not moving? Okay, I think it's stuck. Sorry about this, Prabhuji.
Well, that's okay. Are you're trying to get the verses now, aren't you?
Yeah, it's not letting me move.
Shift down. Yeah, maybe stop share and. Do you want me to share it this side?
Actually, okay. I'm gonna try once more, and if not, then I'll let you do it.
Good. Yeah, good.
Okay. It's come up. It's still loading for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
Thank you. Can I have a volunteer to read them, please? Anyone?
Hang on. I can tell you. Arav, go for it. Very good.
Text 1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. Which I read text 2 as well.
Yeah. Go for all of it. You can read all of it.
Okay. Text 2. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. Text 3. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. Text 4. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Text 5. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well.
Thank you. Text 6 is also going to pop up, so if you want, you can read that as well, from text 6 to 9.
Okay. Text 6. For him who has conquered the mind is best of friends, but for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Text 7. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Text 8. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. Text 9. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral meditators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
Thank you. That was really well read. So the summary of verses 1 to 9. The mind is that voice within. Essentially, it's a storehouse of memories and experiences that offers options to the individual. So if you choose to study psychology later on, this is actually, proven by science as well. Of course, we focus more on Vedic science because most of the things that science in current day has discovered was already written in our shastras or our scriptures long time back. So if you do study psychology, you can learn more about the mind as a voice and essentially, the storehouse of memories and whatnot. So in that sense, an uncontrolled mind can really agitate and misguide people. Because of course, if your mindset is not right and if your state of mind isn't correct, then you will be agitated easily and you will tend to, not decide the best for yourself. And it can also entangle the soul within this world because if your mind becomes too sort of inclined to material things, then it's more likely that you, of course, it is likely that your soul is sort of, it gets entangled in this material world because remember, this isn't where we're supposed to be. This isn't our permanent home. Our permanent home is with Krishna, up in, Vaikuntha or Golok Vrindavan. But of course, like an uncontrolled mind will deter us from doing that. And it forces us to succumb to our lower nature, which is of, the three sinful qualities, which is lust, anger, and greed. More time, if your desires are quite material, these three qualities are prominent, and they can really sort of misguide your mind in that sense and really push you down to like the hellish planets rather than taking you higher. So we also have to remember always to keep our mind controlled, because there's this one sort of quote that's really said, if you have a controlled mind, it's your friend, and if your mind controls you, it's your enemy. So if our mind is our friend, it can really push us up higher in our spiritual journey, and really make us progressive and help us make healthy decisions which bring us closer to Krishna. So we aim for that tranquility and peace of mind and sort of move away from those three qualities listed, lust, anger, and greed. We don't want to be there. So the lesson that Krishna teaches is that in the second chapter, he describes to Arjuna that we are not the body. And that means that, some people misinterpret that, okay, if we're not the body, then we're the mind. But we are not the mind either, because it can be the friend or the enemy of the soul. Of course, we can, regulate and observe the mind, but people also do what the mind dictates. So that, like, it means that the soul isn't in the picture. If you're, people go through stages. If you're not the body, oh, I guess you're the mind. But that's also sort of a secondary thing. The mind is a really complicated sort of thing, and that's why Krishna has made it so much easier just telling us that we're a soul rather than anything else. And when our mind is sort of uncontrolled, it also really impacts how we regulate our material desires, and how it doesn't allow us to go higher into our spiritual journey, because the mind can be really sort of here and there, and it's really hard to regulate it. That's why when we put our mind to Krishna, then that's when it becomes regulated, and that's when the soul is also able to shine through. So Prabhuji, anything else to add?
I think that's really well put, and simply to understand that we are not the mind, but we can control our mind or be controlled by our mind, especially when one is at a young age. Very good to practice controlling the mind. The mind tells us to do something which we really shouldn't be doing, like perhaps watching television when we should be doing our homework. And we say to the mind, no, I'm going to get my homework done first. And then later, if I have time, I'll watch the television. So that is good practice from a young age. Controlling the mind.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So this is a really this is a picture that really puts things into perspective. So when we talk about, you know, our senses and our soul and our mind, this picture really sums it up. Now, if you've ever been, you know, if you've ever been on like a horse cart or something, you'll know that horses are really uncontrollable, of course, without the reins. So that's why it's like the senses are symbolized by the horses in this picture, because horses can be really uncontrollable at times and they can run around here and there if you don't control them. Now, what are they controlled by? Those are the reins. And the reins are symbolized, you know, it's a symbol of the mind. And our reins are controlled by by the driver, which is, you know, our intelligence. So our intelligence and our knowledge factor has to be so high that we're actually able to keep control of the mind and, you know, therefore control our senses. Now, in all of this, if you can see, the soul is just, you know, relaxing just at the back. That's because the soul isn't, the soul in a sense isn't able to, it's just a soul, like, right? It's part and parcel of Krishna. So that's why the soul isn't majorly affected by what we do. It's just us. Of course, our mind is, you know, when we do something and we feel bad later on, any type of emotion we have is experienced by the mind. So the soul is just like a factor at the back that just sits there, and because the soul is aware that whatever the mind, you know, does, whether it's good or bad, the soul will, you know, either have a birth underneath, so like in the less consciousness species, or the soul will be uplifted. So that's why the soul isn't sort of doing much. It's just there. It's there to guide us, but at the same time, it's not affected by anything we do. Whatever is affected is just our mind and our physical sort of body. So we need to make sure that our intelligence is, you know, up to the top, and we have good, you know, transcendental knowledge, so that we're able to control the mind, which can then control our senses. So, Prabhuji, if you could just elaborate.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really good. And the
Thank
soul is a little bit frightened because it's
Yeah.
uncontrolled environment in this world.
Yeah. So it's not that the soul isn't, you know, completely unaffected,
Mm.
but also it is unaffected, you know, because we studied from chapter 2 that the soul has so many characteristics, but at the same time it has no characteristics. So majorly what is affected is us, and we of course we don't want to have, you know, birth after birth going through all the species, but our soul knows when we do something wrong and it knows when we do something right. So we try to, you know, get that intuition and put it into our intelligence so that we can control everything. Any volunteers to read from text 10, please? Okay. How about Lokeshwar goes, and then Ishwar and Kishore, you can do the next ones.
Okay, text 10. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. Text 11 to 12. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities, fixing the mind on one point. Text 13 to 14. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life.
Thank you, Lokeshwar. The next texts are just coming up. Okay. Yep. You can continue.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Text 15. Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence. Text 16. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi or Arjuna if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. Text 17. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Text 18. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material senses, he is said to be well established in yoga. Text 19. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so does the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendental self.
Thank you, Lokeshwar. Ishwari and Kishori, one of you or both of you can read these texts.
Okay. In the stage of perfection called trance, or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of great difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Text 24. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Text 25. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in a trance, by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone, and should think of nothing else.
Thank you. There's another slide of texts.
Should we carry on?
Yes, please.
Text 26. From wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Text 27. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reaction to past deeds. Text 28. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Text 29. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Text 30. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Text 31. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remaining always in me in all circumstances. Text 32. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna.
Thank you, Ishwari and Kishori and Lokeshwar for reading. All of you read amazing. Thank you so much for that. So, summary of verses 10 to 32. That was a lot of information, but Krishna talks about, how we can control the mind and what a yogi should and shouldn't do. Of course, if they focus on dhyana yoga. So one way to control the mind is through the process of Astanga yoga, which includes dhyana yoga. So dhyana yoga is actually the practice of meditation. There's also different types of meditation. One of them is just where you sit down and you focus your mind on one thing. What we generally do is we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and that is mantra meditation. So we chant that 108 times, 16 rounds of it. Now, Krishna explains that we can control this mind through living in seclusion. Of course, if you won't have anything around you, what is your mind going to be distracted by? So that's one way to control the mind. Another way is practicing celibacy. So, not engaging in any intercourse once you're married, or I think maybe even after that, I'm not sure though. I think celibacy is just until you're married. Am I right, Babuji?
Yes, that's right. And then one can, unite with the other opposite sex if one wants children. That's
yeah. So basically, no illicit relationships before marriage or after, under strict regulations of eating and sleeping. So, the yogi would sit in a perfectly sort of straight, erect position and focus his consciousness on the Supreme. Under strict regulations of eating and sleeping basically means that you like it said in the text, you don't eat too much or too little, and you don't sleep too much or too little. And of course, in this age, in this day, people do, irregular amounts of both things. Some people sleep way too much. Some people sleep way too little, and, similarly eat too much, eat too little. And it's the strictness of it means to just give your body how much it needs, not excess, but also, not under how much the prescribed amount is. And of course, meditate in this way for many years, maintaining silence. Now, Arjuna wanted to stop fighting and go to the forest, so Krishna blinds Arjuna with science of dhyana yoga. We know that, from the start, of course, because Arjuna was so, overwhelmed with grief, with compassion. He didn't want to kill anyone. He didn't want to fight anyone. He just didn't want to be involved with the war. he wanted to, like his father Pandu. Pandu went and took Vanvas, and Arjuna thought, yeah, I'm gonna do that as well because I don't want to fight anyone, so I'm gonna do what my father did. And of course, Krishna said, well, it's not that easy, mate. You're gonna have to live in seclusion, be a celibate. You're gonna have to, know how much to eat, know how much to sleep, and you're gonna have to maintain silence. You can't speak to anyone. So are you really going to do it after what I've told you, after all these things? Do you really think it's possible for you to do? So the lesson that we learn, that Krishna teaches, is that this science of Ashtanga yoga or Dhyana yoga that Krishna describes is very difficult to practice in this age as well. And it's what Krishna wanted Arjuna to understand. If Krishna is saying this back in Dwapar Yuga, imagine us. We're 10 times sort of more like less than them. We're 10 times, we have worse memory, worse intelligence. We're disturbed, everything. So imagine, is that practical for us? Can we really do that? So if Arjuna wasn't able to do it back then when people were actually competent, we have no chance of doing it here. So he wanted to show Arjuna that he cannot become a sannyasi in the forest because his nature is not going to allow him. Especially Arjun being a Kshatriya as well, it's not in his nature because he is, Arjuna does have these qualities of being a warrior, and he has these qualities of being a hero and a savior, of a defender of people. So there's no way he can just completely change and become a sannyasi because it's just not for him. It's not his job. So, again, text 16 is mentioned because it's really interesting. Don't eat too much or too little. Don't sleep too much or too little. So those are the summaries of the verses from 10 to 32.
And how we can put that, very good, Pari, how we can put that into practice is in our own life. Think about this point about not eating too much, not eating too little, not sleeping too much, and not sleeping too little. So this is very practical from our point of view. Eating too much obviously gives all sorts of issues. Sleeping too much also gives all sorts of issues. So we can bear that in mind in our own lives, how to put this into practice, how to put the Bhagavad Gita into practice.
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of disadvantages that come with, these amounts because they're not the prescribed amounts. So when we actually do what is, told, that's where we attain the control of the mind, not in too much or too little. So thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
So this is...
Pardon? Can we stop there?
Okay.
We'll continue next week, I think, because time is going to run out and we can take questions. And I think Ishwari Kishori must have a quiz prepared as well. So,
of course. All right. Yeah.
Let's take some questions. So, questions, Ishwari, Kishori, and anybody else has questions, please do ask. Yes, go for it, Ishwari. You can unmute, huh?
Sorry, I was just talking to myself again. Is it possible that once you have controlled the mind, can it go back to being uncontrolled?
Well, interesting question. I feel like once people realize how much peace there is when you control your mind, no one would actually want to go back. I mean, of course, there are things that can distract you or put you in a position where it's hard to decide what you should do. But it takes a lot of time and 100% a lot of meditation to control your mind. So once you reach that place where you know what's right for you and you have that good distinction between what is good for you and what isn't, and also, of course, once you realize how how much better it is to just remain in peace, then I think there isn't a point where people would want to go back. But yeah, Babaji, any other answers?
The thing is, the mind is very strong, and even if we think we control, if we are thinking we've controlled our mind, that in itself is a sign that we are not under, we have not controlled the mind. The thing is, the senses are so strong, they can even take away the mind of a person who's trying to control the mind. Should always be vigilant, because at any moment, Maya is so strong. If we deviate, if we even think that, hey, you know what, nothing can affect me, immediately Maya's gonna come and give us a good blow, you know. So good question. If somebody is controlled, they're very humble. They won't say, oh yeah, you know, I've controlled my mind. They're just very, very humble. They know at any moment Maya can attack. So they're very vigilant. They keep up their guard all the time, you know. So.
Yeah, that was a beautiful answer.
Yes, that was a very amazing answer. I think in one of the sessions previously, or in the last Bhagavad Gita class, that the Lord said that of the months, the November, December months. Why does he reside in those specific months?
November and December is a special time because, you know, that's where a lot of festivals take place. So, of course, Diwali and of the sorts, but also in the Sanskrit calendar and in the Hindu calendar, those months are, I think, part of Chaturmas.
Yeah, actually, it's this November, December is after the Kartik month, and it's the autumn season, and Krishna loves autumn because the summer is over, and there's a lot of rain, and beautiful nature fructifies, you know, facilitates the glory, and there's cool breezes. So I was a little surprised when I was reading that. Why does he not say Kartik is his favorite month? Because that's actually the month of Radharani. And she's the boss. So he picks the month after, which is like Magh Sirsa. It's like November, December. Autumn comes in and it's not so hot. And that's what he picks.
Thank you. Is a sign of a controlled mind, like when you do your chanting and your mind doesn't wander at all, like doesn't even think to wander?
Yeah, that's a great example of a controlled mind. 100%.
Very, very good point. And sign of an uncontrolled mind, as soon as you start chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, wonder what's for dinner. Hare Krishna, Hare. I must record that television. Hare Krishna. Oh yeah, go to phone. What's it? We start making a to-do list.
Suddenly, all the things you forgot to do come back to your head.
Everything that you've forgotten, suddenly it's become the most urgent thing. As soon as you start
there's a whole list of things going on inside your head.
Exactly.
No, that's exactly what it is. It's really hard. It's really easy to deviate your mind once you start chanting. So really be careful of that. But yeah.
Especially if you're doing it under a timer, you're always going to be thinking, oh, I wonder whether it's 2 minutes yet. I wonder whether the alarm's gone off and I haven't seen it yet. Or have I put my phone on silent? That's why it's not ringing yet.
That's right. You're absolutely spot on.
Has anyone done Astanga Yoga and Dhyana Yoga in Kali Yuga?
I'm sure many people have tried, but it's sort of a very very limited chance that they've had to be able to actually be successful in it, just because, you know, the characteristics that we possess in Kali Yuga, of course that's a big factor, but also it's just really hard with your surroundings here as well to actually control your mind. I'm sure many people have tried, but you know, the chances of success are quite low. Or maybe they've done it amazing, you know, the first few months, but then after a couple days or weeks, they've gotten pretty bored of it, and it's not been the same. Whereas people, back in Satyug or Treta Yuga or Dwapar Yuga, they did it, and they did it seriously. They did it very seriously. And they did it for, their whole lives, like majority of their lives. So it's not like us, where we constantly, once we do it, amazingly, and then the next day we're like, oh, can't be asked. So I'm sure many people have tried, but maybe I personally haven't met anyone that it's worked out for properly.
It's very difficult in the age of Kali Yuga, but no doubt there will be some self-controlled personalities. No doubt about that.
How long do you think one should sleep at night? For how many hours? And is it different for children?
Yep. So children is 100%. I think it's 8 hours per night. And for as you grow up, the amount you need to sleep of course it gets cut by a little bit of time, but yes, you still need sleep when you're older. So I'm not sure what the prescribed amount is for that. I have my 8 hours every day. So
for adults, it's probably 6 is quite a good number. 6 hours, maybe 6.5, 7 hours, and it is subjective. It is according to one's circumstances, one's body, one's mind.
Would it be affected like by what you do every day? So like if one day you did lots of activities and you were doing a lot of physical things, then your body would need more sleep. Is that right?
Possibly. Yes, correct. I think you have to listen to your body, because sometimes we have so many battles going on. The mind is usually the biggest battle. So sometimes you just have to listen to the body. You need some extra rest, you take it extra rest and be fresh, and then focus on the Lord a bit better, rather than always feeling sleepy.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all of our questions.
Fantastic question.
Does anyone have any more questions? I know Arav is new, so if you have any questions, from previous chapters, anything you want to know about, or this chapter, please, don't feel embarrassed or scared to ask, because we're here to clear up everything. And the same goes to everyone else as well. So Lokeshwar, Kishore Prabhuji. But if not, in the meantime, Ishwari and Kishore, you can put up the link and stuff for the quiz.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay,
So they put it up. Please have a look at the chat and join. Arav, this is new for you, so you're welcome if you're able to join this quiz. You won't be perhaps knowing many of the answers because it's a quiz regarding a previous chapter. And it's a multiple choice, but you can have a go anyway. Yes.
Okay, so Prabhuji, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to leave now.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much, Pari. It was a good session.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Really liked your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I have exams from Wednesday, so
Okay, good luck. Wishing you the best.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare
We'll be in touch. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
everyone for joining. Bye-bye.
Hare Krishna. Okay, anybody missing? Anybody? Are we waiting for anybody? Otherwise, we can start the quiz on chapter 5. Wow. Amazing. Ishwari and Kishori. Amazing.
There's only 10 questions.
That's okay. Yeah, brilliant. Amazing.
Okay.
If there's nobody to join, then yes, why don't you make a start?
Okay. What is the name of chapter 5? Kali Yoga, Gnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, or Karma Yoga? And the correct answer is Karma Yoga.
I think it's Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness, but yeah.
What are some of the themes of this chapter? Our thoughts manifest in actions, our minds manifest to learn breakdancing instantly. We learn that we should let the mind rule us no matter what. Repeated actions form habits. And the correct answers were the first and the last.
It's a multiple answer. Yeah, good. Well done.
True or false? You can't do renunciation and work at the same time. And the correct answer is false.
You can do both.
What are the 3 doers in all activity? Individual soul, super soul, and material nature, the ego, heart, and consciousness, the watcher, watched, and the not watched, the lusty, greedy, and angry.
Have we got?
And the correct answer is the first option. How many times should you ask yourself whether you need a non-essential item? This is a fill in the blank.
Every time, yeah.
And the correct answer was 3 or more. True or false? The individual soul can control whether its own desires can come true or not. And the correct answer is false. True or false? You get real peace and happiness if you desire a lot. And the correct answer is false. True or false? Everyone is the same. And the correct answer is false. I mean, no, true. No.
We are, because we are the spirit soul.
Yes.
Is that the reason? Yeah.
Each living entity is of the same spiritual quality, and different bodies with different qualities are produced according to one's past actions, how it breakdanced in its previous life, how many questions it asked in its previous life. Desires of the soul and its consciousness. This is a
Yes.
multiple.
Two answers. Yeah, good.
The correct answer is the first and the last. We come into this world with blank and we leave this world with blank. Everything we wish, breakdancing skills, fruit, nothing. And the correct answer is nothing. And third was Bharat, second was Lokeshwar, and first was Smita.
Very good. Well done. Well done. And what's this with breakdancing? I remember you did mention that to me before, but are you into it, both of you?
No, it's just a theme which started it. We actually have no clue about breakdancing whatsoever.
Anyway, thank you so much, Ishwari. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And we shall catch up next week with the second half of chapter 6. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.